5 minutes can reveal the truth about a person. In a glass tower high above Midtown, it took less than that to show who owned the room. "I do not shake hands with staff," said Clara Voss. She did not whisper it. She let it hang in the boardroom, air like a verdict. Evan Cole held his hand out anyway for one quiet second. Then he lowered it. No flinch, no fight, only calm. 5 executives watched with the same thin smile. They approved of the insult. They expected him to shrink. Evan did not. At 42, he had learned how to stand still when people tried to make him small. Today, something in his eyes promised a different ending. He adjusted his watch. A simple gesture. Nobody in the room read it correctly. Clara's suit gleamed. Her hair sat perfect. Evan wore a plain jacket, a crisp shirt, and shoes that looked useful. Her gaze moved over him from head to toe with open disdain. "So you are the consultant," she said. She turned the word into an injury. "Our investors do like their protocols. Be brief. People like me have full calendars." 3 hours earlier, Evan had stepped into the lobby of Voss Dynamics right on time. He drove a modest sedan. He carried no visible status. The receptionist told him to wait in the common area. 40 minutes passed. 2 security guards circled 3 times. He logged every slight without a word. What nobody in that lobby knew was simple. Evan Cole controlled Cole Harbor Capital, a fund managing over $60 billion. He was weighing a $4 billion investment in Voss Dynamics. The wait was part of a test. He wanted to see how the company treated people who did not arrive wrapped in prestige. Back in the boardroom, Clara flipped through papers without looking at him. "Our numbers speak for themselves," she said. "We do not have time to explain complex ideas to someone who will not grasp our vision." Evan folded his hands. He listened. His small recorder captured every word. When her slide deck ended, Clara glanced at her watch. "Questions," she said, like a challenge. "Only one," Evan answered. "Do you believe that what I have seen here reflects the values you want in a partner?" Clara laughed. The table laughed with her. "Values, Mr. Cole. Our values are profit and results. Your supervisors will understand when you report back." He let a hint of a smile touch his face. A secret kept its own time. Clara shifted her attention to the other executives and continued as if Evan were not there. "As you can see, growth exceeds expectations," she said, tracing charts with a gold laser pointer. "Excuse me," Evan said, voice steady. "The revenue curve on that slide does not match your public filing for last quarter. There is a discrepancy of about 300 million. The silence that followed pressed on the walls. Clara turned slowly. Her eyes held irritation, not curiosity. "Do you have experience with analysis at this level?" she asked. "Some," Evan said. The vice president, Tom Hale, leaned forward. "Our time is valuable," he said. "Your checklist can be short. Tell us what you need to hear and we can end this." Evan had met this voice before. At 18, he interned at a small brokerage in Chicago and watched rich clients treat black staff like furniture. At 25, he pitched his first fund idea and was shown 3 doors before finishing a sentence. He learned to study when others slept. He learned to read a balance sheet the way some people read music. He learned to let contempt pass by, like weather, while he built something that lasted. He adjusted his watch again. "Numbers matter," he said. "Values matter more. I am here to understand both." Clara laughed for real this time. "Values. Our value is excellence," she said, and let her eyes travel over him once more. "We recognize it when we see it." His phone vibrated in his pocket. A single line from his chief of staff, Liam Park, who watched from the office 6 blocks away. Phase 2 ready when authorized. Clara, pleased by the room's response, pushed the insult farther. "Companies like ours require a certain refinement," she said. "Proper education, the right circles, experience where real decisions are made." She walked to the tall window and looked out over Midtown. "I imagine it is hard for someone like you to grasp the complexity we handle." "It is not hard," Evan said. "It is familiar. People often confuse inherited privilege with earned competence." The word struck. Clara turned. How dare you? My family built this company. From the ground up. With an initial loan of $50 million from your grandfather's trust, Evan said, voice even. That is public record. Tom Hale's hand hit the table. This is over the line. Who do you think you are to speak to Ms. Voss like that, Evan? Let a fraction of his real weight show. Someone who knows how to find the true price of things, he said. Clara drew herself tall. Fine. You want numbers? We will give you numbers. She pressed the intercom. Jenny, bring me the Orion. Project reports, all of them. The confidential ones as well, came the secretary's voice. Especially the confidential ones, Clara said. Our consultant seems to enjoy detail. What Clara did not know was simple. Evan had already reviewed Orion through legal channels available to any serious investor. The project was 3 years late and $600 million over budget. The pattern suggested mismanagement. Some lines hinted at something worse. While they waited, Clara spoke loudly to Tom as if Evan were a coat on a stand. Some people do not know when they are out of their league, she said. Evan thought of his office and the 15 analysts on his floor. Harvard, MIT, Wharton. He thought of the bank chief who called him yesterday asking for advice on a $12 billion acquisition. He thought of the recorder in his pocket collecting a case study in ethics and power. 40 minutes had passed since the handshake. Clara handed him a heavy folder like a burden he deserved. Here are the Orion documents you were so eager to review, she said. I hope you can follow our methodology. Evan opened the folder. He read fast. He marked. He turned pages with the ease of someone who has lived inside this language for years. Interesting choice in section 7.3, he said, without looking up. Reclassifying operating costs as research may boost a quarter. It will also interest federal auditors. The quiet that followed felt different, not angry, afraid. Tom looked at Clara. Clara did not look back. How did you find that? Tom asked, then stopped. He already knew the answer. He had missed it. Evan had not. Experience, Evan said and kept reading. Your productivity figures also do not align with public energy data for the Ohio plant. The gap is about 22%. A thin line of sweat formed at Clara's hairline. That number required access to very specific data. Who are you? She asked. The edge in her voice softened for the first time. Evan smiled the quiet smile he had practiced over years of being underestimated. Someone who pays attention, he said. Her phone lit up and hummed against the table. She glanced down. The color in her face shifted by a shade. Urgent meeting canceled. Lead investor has postponed the $4 billion decision. No reason given. Clara pressed her lips together. Pros never come alone, she muttered. She lifted her chin. The mask returned. Any difficulty? Evan asked. His tone stayed calm. That only annoyed her more. Nothing for you to worry about, she said, typing fast. Complex international issues. Matters that require real experience. Evan adjusted his watch for the third time. Outside the window, the city moved at its usual pace. Inside the room, a clock had started that only he could hear. He closed the Orion folder and set it gently on the table. I have what I need, he said. Clara's phone buzzed again. She did not read the screen this time. She did not want to see what came next. Bad news walks in on quiet feet. In that boardroom, it came as a ringtone. Clara's phone lit up again. She answered on speaker without thinking. Clara, this is Martin Keene, said a steady voice. Her general counsel did not waste time. We just received an informal notice from the SEC, accounting questions tied to the Orion project. They mention reclassification concerns. I need you off any calls and away from any external statements until we assess risk. Clara's face held steady. Her hands did not. Thank you, Martin, she said, and ended the call with a small, controlled breath. Tom stared at the table. The other executives shifted in their chairs. Nobody spoke first. The silence felt heavy and real. Evan looked at the skyline and then back to Clara. Is now a good time to revisit those values? He asked. She ignored him. She reached for composure and put it back on like a jacket. Evan's phone vibrated once in his pocket. He read the screen. Liam had sent one word. Ready. Evan typed a single reply. Now. 6 blocks away, Liam Park stood with 5 analysts around. A long desk. He checked a timer. He pushed send. A 43-minute audio file began to travel. 17 financial reporters received it. 12 civil rights leaders received it. 27 institutional investors received it. The subject line was simple. Voss Dynamics meeting. Culture and conduct. In the boardroom, the air shifted before anyone knew why. Jenny stepped in and whispered to Clara. Media lines are ringing. Non-stop, she said. Several outlets request a statement about discrimination claims. Clara blinked once. Discrimination, she said. Her voice rose without her permission. What claims? Tom's phone buzzed hard against the wood. So did the phones of 2 other executives. Tom opened a message, went pale, and stood up, so fast his chair slid back. There are recordings, he said. They are online. They include comments from this morning. Clara turned to Evan. For the first time, she looked past the plain jacket and saw the steel beneath it. You recorded our meeting, she said. Evan reached into his pocket and set a small device on the table. I recorded my own conversation, he said. In New York, one person's consent is enough when that person is part of the conversation. I consented. That is a trap, Tom shouted. That is entrapment. It is documentation, Evan said, of words people chose to say. Clara pressed her palm to her temple. The gold laser pointer lay on the table like a toy. Pride had been easy a moment ago. Control was not so easy now. The desk phone rang again and again. Clara hit the speaker. Clara, said a measured baritone. It is Victor Lang. You will explain right now why our company's name is attached to viral quotes about not shaking hands with staff. Victor chaired the board. He preferred privacy. He sounded like a man who had already read a headline he could not unsee. Clara started to speak. He cut in. Another item. The lead investor has canceled the $4 billion commitment. They cite ethical concerns. I want the truth in 5 minutes, he said. The line clicked dead. Clara looked at Tom. Henderson Capital will not walk, she said. Call them. Tom swallowed. He did not pick up his phone. He looked at Evan instead. There is no Henderson, Evan said, and stood for the first time. There never was. A stillness fell that felt like a held breath. Even the city through the glass seemed to wait. My name is Evan Cole, he said. I am founder and chief executive of Cole Harbor Capital. We manage $62 billion. We have spent 6 months evaluating your company for a $4 billion stake. He took a card from a slim case and placed it on the table. Plain white. Raised. Letters. No flourish. No need. Tom reached for it with both hands. He read the line about Princeton. He read the line about Chicago Booth. He read the line about his years at Morgan Stanley and the advisory role with the New York Fed. He read it twice. Clara stared at Evan like a person passing a mirror and finally seeing her own face. You were the lead investor, she said. The words scratched on the way out. We were, Evan said. The test was simple. We study numbers. We also study culture. We watch how people with power treat people they believe have none. He tapped the Orion folder. We found gaps on paper. Today we found a gap in leadership that no capital can fill. Clara's phone rang again. She did not answer. She could feel the story racing faster than she could run. Tom fumbled with his screen. Hashtag Voss bias is trending, he said. 200,000 mentions in under 2 hours. The stock is down 18%. Clara looked down at her pristine suit. She had dressed for victory. The room was now a courtroom and she was on the wrong side of the table. Why are you doing this? She asked. Her voice had no edge now. Only strain. Because markets need sunlight, Evan said. Because people deserve work without humiliation. Because companies that confuse privilege with merit become careless with truth. Sometimes the only way to change a system is to make a clear example. He did not raise his voice. He did not lean forward. He did not gloat. Power did not need volume. The desk phone rang a third time. Clara let it ring. She looked at the window instead, as if the city could hand her a plan. Tom drew a breath he had been holding. "What do you want?" he asked. "Is there a path?" "Forward. There is always a path toward repair," Evan said. "It begins with honesty. It continues with leadership that understands the value of every person in the room." Clara closed her eyes for a second that felt longer than a minute. When she opened them, the room had not changed. Only the truth had. She sat very straight. "We will handle our statements," she said. "We will address the SEC notice. We will conduct an internal review." Evan picked up the small recorder and placed it back in his pocket. "I have all I need," he said. He turned toward the talker. The moment he reached the handle, the boardroom speakers came alive again with Victor Lang's voice. "We convene an emergency session in 15 minutes, he said. "Attend or do not return." Clara did not move. Tom did not move. The team sat in a freeze between panic and action. Evan stepped into the corridor. Reporters were not here, yet. They would be soon. His phone vibrated. A message from Liam. Phase 2 complete. External confirmations pouring in. Evan paused and looked back through the glass. The people who had dismissed him now sat under a light they did not control. He did not hate them. He did not forgive them. He simply believed in a better way to run a company and a cleaner way to make money. He walked to the elevator and pressed the down arrow. The doors opened with a soft chime. As they closed, the boardroom door burst wide and Tom stepped into the hall, voice chasing the metal. "Mr. Cole," he called. The doors met. The car began to move. New York rose around him like a map of hard lessons and earned wins. He checked his watch. Time for the next move. Time for the long game to show its purpose. In the lobby, the noise had already started. Phones buzzed. Security shifted. A few people lifted their heads the way people do when a storm changes direction. Evan walked past the front desk. A receptionist who had made him wait earlier kept her eyes on her screen. He did not slow down. Outside, the city met him with the same steady roar it gives to everyone. A camera van turned the corner. Another followed. He headed east, not fast, not slow, and slipped into the flow of foot traffic. 6 blocks away, Liam watched the dashboards light up. Reporters opened the file within seconds of each other. Investors opened it. Advocacy groups opened it. He took a breath and sent a short update. Phase 2 complete. External confirmations pouring in. Back in the boardroom, Clara faced the thing she had dismissed. Her desk phone rang again. She answered on speaker. "Ms. Voss, this is Dr. Reena Patel," said a clear voice. "I lead the Corporate Ethics Council for the National Technology Alliance. Our board voted to suspend Voss Dynamics from Alliance. Events pending an independent review of discriminatory practices and accounting concerns. We expect your cooperation with investigators. I will send formal notice within the hour." Clara stared at the speaker as if it had betrayed her. "Understood," she said, though she did not. The call ended. The room stayed very still. Tom scrolled through markets on his screen. "Trading volume just doubled," he said. "Short. Interest is spiking. 2 major funds announced they are exiting." Clara looked at the door Evan had used. People like her were used to setting the terms. The terms had moved. On Lexington Avenue, Evan's phone vibrated again. Liam this time, not a dashboard. He asked for permission to brief key pension clients on the cultural risk findings. Evan replied with one word: "Proceed." He crossed to the shade side of the street and let his pace even out with the crowd. Power that moves quietly moves far. That was a lesson he had learned young. Another lesson sat beside it. Humiliation, remembered, becomes clarity if you do the work. An hour later, the emergency board session began without him. He did not need to hear the fear in their voices. He had heard versions of it before when numbers finally told the truth no one wanted to say aloud. By afternoon, the trending tag had gathered hundreds of thousands of posts. Clips of Clara's opening line spread fast. So did a still image of Evan lowering his hand without a flinch. An insurance carrier requested a meeting. A lender reviewed covenants. A regulator scheduled interviews. Evan returned to his office. He took the side entrance. Liam met him at the elevator with a short list. Press inquiries. Board outreach. 2. Notes from attorneys who suddenly favored immediate collaboration. Next steps, Liam said. Finish what we started, Evan said. We do not gloat. We do not grandstand. We tell the truth we can prove and we keep our own house clean. Liam nodded. He knew that line by heart. He had learned it on a day he would never forget. Years earlier, Liam had been a junior consultant, with a perfect deck and a tired smile. A senior partner cut him down in front of a client, not on facts, on who he was. Liam delivered the deck anyway and carried the weight home on the train. After the meeting, a stranger approached him in the lobby and asked one question. Do you want to work where your work is seen? The man asked. The man was Evan. The offer was quiet. The promise was simple. Bring your standards. I will match them. Liam had said yes. 8 years later, he stood at the core of an operation that moved with patience and precision. Today it moved with both. Evening settled. The city changed clothes, from slate to neon. Evan sat in a glass-walled conference room with his senior team. They mapped timelines. They listed facts. They separated anger from action and put action on the calendar. Before they left, Evan looked around the table. Different schools, different languages, different neighborhoods turned into careers. No one at that table had been handed a stage. They built one and then invited more chairs. Tomorrow, Evan said, we publish the framework. Numbers are not enough. People need a way to measure culture without guesswork. They had been working on that framework for a year. It had a name now, the Cole Standard, a set of simple tests any investor could apply. How pay lines up with promises. How promotions track with performance. How vendors are treated when nobody is watching. How leaders speak to the people they think do not matter. They would offer it free. Adoption would be optional. But markets notice tools that make truth visible. They always do. The next morning, the document went live. The download count surged before noon. A European bank requested a briefing. A manufacturing group in the Midwest asked for a pilot. 2 sovereign funds wanted workshops for their portfolio companies. Clara watched that same morning from a different chair. She sat in a conference room without windows. Victor Lang sat at the head of the table. Her legal team sat on her right. Her finance chief sat on her left. Every sentence weighed a pound. Every question weighed more. How did this happen? Victor asked. He did not raise his voice. A calm question can break a person faster than a shout. Clara reached for numbers. She reached for excuses. Her hands closed on air. The room waited. Then the room decided. By the end of the week, Clara was placed on leave. Tom was asked to step back from operations. Investigators requested documents and devices. The stock slid again. Vendors called for reassurance and did not get it. Evan did not watch the hearings. He worked. He met with a teacher's pension fund in the morning and a hospital endowment at noon. He spoke quietly about risk you can count and risk you feel. He showed how both flow into the same river and end up in the same sea. In private moments, he thought of his first year out of school. He thought of a copy room where a vice president handed him a stack of pitch books and called him by the wrong name 3 times. He thought of his mother's hands. He thought of late nights with public filings and coffee that tasted like tin. Not one of those memories asked him to be cruel now. They asked him to be thorough. They asked him to be better. 6 months found him in a new office on the 51st floor above Bryant Park. The view stretched to the river. He never got used to it. He did not want to. Wonder kept him honest. Cole Harbor had grown. Requests flooded in after the recording. Some came for the headline. Most came because the method worked. Since spring, capital offers had risen by 41%. 18 companies requested a full culture audit before closing major deals. A half dozen asked for a standing review every quarter. Liam walked in with a stack of briefs. 3 items, he said. 1 incoming note from Columbia. They want you to open next term with a lecture on ethics and returns. 2, our standard has been adopted by a retail consortium across Southeast Asia. 3, Voss Dynamics filed for bankruptcy last week. Their IP will be sold in parts. Clara is out. She moved in with her sister in Rockland County. Her counsel has reached out 3 times. Evan set the papers down and looked out at the park. He did not feel triumph. He felt the weight of a truth. He had learned the hard way. Ruin fixes nothing on its own. Change happens when the next choice is better than the last one. He turned back to Liam. On Columbia, he said, accept. Put the focus on practical tools. If a student leaves with a checklist that catches one bad practice at their first job, that matters. And Voss? Liam asked. We keep our distance, Evan said. If investigators need our recordings, they get them. We do not manage their story and we do not dance on graves. Liam nodded and made notes. In the afternoon, a small group waited in the reception area. Young founders from the mentorship program Cole Harbor funded with a slice of profits. They wore hope on their faces. They also wore the wary look of people who have been told no for reasons that never made it into an email. A 24-year-old stood when Evan entered. Her name was Maya Ortiz. She built an education platform that helped first-generation students navigate financial aid with plain language and clean design. Thank you for the seed check, she said. We passed $2 million in valuation last week. The first school district signed on yesterday. Evan remembered their first meeting. Her numbers were clean. Her plan was solid. 16 firms had turned her down with the same polite line about timing. He had written a check and told her the only rule. Build with care. Build for people who do not get a second try. The meeting ran long. Evan liked that. He asked questions that made them sharpen their ideas. He made no speeches. He offered quiet, advice and a promise to pick up the phone when they needed a hard answer fast. They left with a few introductions and a sense that someone serious believed in them. Evan stood at the window again and watched the light shift across the park. The sun moved. The color of the city changed with it. He felt something settle. Not victory. Direction. Liam returned with one more update. Global Finance wants a cover story, he said. They want to title it The Man Who Turned Humiliation into a New Market Standard. Tell them no, Evan said. Send them the framework instead. The story is not me. The story is a tool anyone can use. Liam smiled. He had expected that answer. He liked giving it. That night, Evan walked home. He passed a newsstand. He saw the day reflected back at him in headlines he did not need to read. He kept walking. He thought of the young founders. He thought of the pensioners whose savings now sat in funds that asked better questions. He thought of a world that could be different by small degrees if enough people refused to pretend that contempt was normal. The city lights came on one by one. Each light felt like a choice. Each window looked like a place where someone was making a decision that would turn into a number, that would turn into a life. Tomorrow would bring more calls. Tomorrow would bring pushback from people who wanted the old way back. Tomorrow would bring something better too. The work had already started. It would not stop here. Autumn arrived with clean air and sharper light. Evan returned to the work that mattered most. He sat with retirees from a transit union and answered hard questions about risk. He spoke with nurses who wanted their savings in funds that treated people with respect. He showed how returns stay strong when a company keeps its word. He showed how culture you can measure becomes value you can count. Invitations kept coming. Universities, industry groups, regulators who wanted clearer tools. He said yes when the work could help others see. He said no when the request was about spotlight instead of standards. One morning, Columbia filled a hall for his lecture. Students lined the walls. Professors took notes. Evan opened with a simple idea. Markets reward what they can see. Make conduct visible and capital will find it. Hide conduct and capital will get hurt. He told no heroic story. He walked through basic tests. He asked his audience, to try them the next time a company promised the moon. He showed how a small checklist can catch a big lie. Afterward, a student waited by the stairs. She thanked him for the framework. She had used it in a class project and found a pay gap hidden inside a glowing report. Her team had the evidence to ask better questions. That was the point. A tool in the world. A real change in a small place. Those moments added up. Across the ocean, a bank in Frankfurt adopted the Cole standard for onboarding new clients. In Sao Paulo, a manufacturing council added the tests to their supplier code. In Nairobi, a pension fund translated the guide and trained its trustees. Within months, 43 countries had at least one institution using the same simple measures. No mandate, no force, only adoption because the math worked and the practice felt right. Back in New York, the mentorship program grew. 6 teams graduated in the spring. 7 more joined in the fall. The reception area buzzed every Friday evening, with young founders who carried 2 things in equal measure: ambition, memory. Maya returned with good news. Her education platform signed 3 more districts. A quiet school administrator had written a note about a student who finally understood financial aid and stayed enrolled. It was one story among many. It mattered more than any headline. Liam kept the engine running. He mapped growth without losing guardrails. He turned down a flashy acquisition that smelled wrong. He pushed for a new audit line that would help smaller funds use the standard at cost. Evan approved it. Impact that travels is worth more than a speech about impact. News about Voss Dynamics faded from front pages but did not disappear. Filings told the rest. Bankruptcy, asset sales, leadership changes that came too late. Clara's counsel called again. They asked for a conversation. They asked for a joint statement. They asked for a path back. Evan listened to each message and said the same words. Provide the documents investigators request. Build policies that protect people. Do the work in public. There's nothing to negotiate about the past. There is only a choice about what to do next. Winter edged in. The air over Bryant Park turned bright and thin. Evan stepped out of the office one evening and walked a slow circle around the rink. Children laughed. Phones chimed. A violinist played a tune that sounded like home. He thought of the first time he was told to wait in a lobby while others walked past. He thought of policy as a shield for the powerful. He thought of how a shield can become a mirror when you hold it still long enough and ask the right questions. On a gray Monday, a package arrived with no return address. Inside sat a short letter on plain paper. The handwriting was careful. The apology was clear. Clara owned her words and the harm they did. She wrote that she had started over in a small consulting firm outside the city. She wrote that her new team was diverse and that she was learning how to listen. Evan read it twice. He did not reply. Some answers can only be lived. That afternoon, he met with a hospital fund and then a group of city librarians. They spoke about steady returns and clear screens for culture. He showed them the same simple math. He left them with questions to ask before signing the next commitment. He left them with a way to tell truth from theater. Global Finance called again. They wanted a cover story with a bold headline: The Man Who Turned Humiliation into a New Market Standard. Evan declined again. He sent them a case study pack. He asked them to feature the tools and the founders using them. They agreed. Spring returned. The park shifted from iron to green. The office hosted another mentorship day. A new founder presented a supply chain tracker that graded vendors on safety, wages, and training. Another pitched a hiring platform that hid names in early rounds to guard against bias. The room felt like a blueprint. Not perfect, promising. As the session ended, Evan paused by the small plaque near the conference door. A date, nothing else. His team had put it there to mark the turning point. He did not need the reminder, but he kept it. Not for the fall. For the standard that rose after. Liam joined him at the window. He carried a brief note. Northbridge Group planned to roll out the Cole standard to all of its branches. 43 countries on a single map, training scheduled, metrics tied to executive pay. A quiet step with loud consequences. Evan looked down at the park and then across the city. He thought of the watch on his wrist. Time as a signal. Time as a test. Time as a place where character shows. He remembered the boardroom and the sentence that opened the door to everything that followed. He remembered lowering his hand. Not a surrender. A choice. The best answer to contempt is competence. The best answer to arrogance is a system that does not bow to it. The best answer to a closed door is a better building with more doors and more chairs. That night he walked home along Fifth Avenue. The lights came on in waves. Each window glowed like a decision already in motion. He passed a newsstand. The week's magazines faced the street. No cover with his name. He did not need. When he reached his block and looked up at the sky between buildings, a narrow slice, enough to remind you that the city sits under something larger than itself. He checked his watch one last time. Not to hurry the moment, to mark it. The work would continue in the morning. More calls, more audits, more founders to back, more rooms to make fair. The revenge that mattered had already happened. Not in the fall of a company, but in the rise of a standard. Not in a headline, but in the small, steady changes that protect people who are easy to overlook. Evan unlocked his door and stepped inside. He left his watch on the table. He left his phone by the lamp. He poured a glass of water and stood by the window for a while. The city hummed. The light held. The future felt workable. Tomorrow, the long game would keep going. Not with noise. With proof. With practice. With a promise kept.